So among the methods that are just traditional practice are the breath, and breath extends into singing, and song is, of course, much more than all these things are much more than one thinks in normal waking consciousness. And so song then carries layers of meaning, even if it's not in a language that you understand, or even if it's wordless music. And but it also uses the breath. So as a technique in these states to be singing, not only is working your body and your spirit, you're inspiring by breathing and by singing, and then the tones are affecting the environment. And mostly these are done in traditions, they're done collectively. So there's also that aspect. It's not usually a solo endeavor. And collectively, of course, you've got the amazing telepathic aspect, which we know DMT, or at least ayahuasca, is known for. And that collective mind then becomes part of the spell that you're all in. But also, I think there's a kind of combination of courage and detachment that is necessary in those states, because you can see the darkness, and you can perhaps face the horrors. And in fact, in these traditions, being, swallowed by the anaconda, one of the sort of motifs that we hear about, or facing one kind of nightmare or another, and not running from it, but facing it, is part of becoming a whole human. And we may have experiences that challenge us like that a number of times in our lives with these medicines. I mean, my words that I've come to use over the years are medicina. These are medicines. And then that tells us, too, that healing is another major part of those traditions. And in fact, many of the ceremonies are really focused on healing. So there are many techniques for that have to do with sound and breath and the movement of air, changing absorbing the energy with leaves, or brushing and sweeping, or blowing, and scents, aromatics. And then there's the whole offering and invocation. And I don't know if you want me to go on into, I mean, whether or not these indigenous earth-based cultures have DMT at their fingertips, they have a sense of nature as alive. They're animist cultures. And so not only nature, but really everything is alive. And there are many, many beings everywhere, of spaces and places and elements and ancestors and plants and animals, of course, and all of these things, and spirit guides. And I mean, we've heard of these in different contexts, but the world is the invisible world is a highly populated place, and there are etiquettes and ethics of that realm that need to be respected. And people in these traditions recognize entities that they can think of as allies, and call on them in a respectful way. So to help them, or just to placate them. There's all sorts of, it's a universe of relationships, And so I believe that that kind of multiplicity of relationships is happening in any of these animist, shamanic. All our ancestors were this way. And yet what the DMT does is it brings a certain it makes them real in a certain way. And I really think that this, you can say this about any of the traditional psychedelics, and that people do in the cultures where they use them, that they reveal to us a world that is normally invisible, but is actually probably more important than this one, and maybe is the real world. And so that crossover between dream and reality comes up, of course. And here we are in this, hardcore three-dimensional dream, and the ability to travel into the other one and look at this whole situation and look at whatever your personal challenges are, your family, your community, the globe. It's a really crucial part of keeping it in balance. So that's what the health part is. That's what the healing is restoring balance, because everybody's wobbling all the time. So these medicines then put us in a state of mind where we can recognize what balance is and where we are out of it, and perhaps how to find it again. It's not something that we can do just by ourselves, generally without the guidance of shamanic practitioners or the help of these invisible allies whom we meet through these states. So I think that one of the things, I'm just kind of going off, is that okay? I think that one of the things that's really different in this culture, in contemporary Western culture, than in these cultures that still have at least remnants of their traditions alive, and in some cases growing, I think one of the differences is that we don't have a background of respect or even belief that these things are possible. And so we have, our rationalist raisers of doubt and the fear of what we think is the edge of madness and the fear of loss of control, not to mention legal taboos and consequences of all sorts. And who are you going to talk to about this experience if you have one like this? Isolation, all of these things. But also, because we don't have a tradition of respect for these incredibly powerful forces, then as a culture we get into dangerous places where abuse or carelessness, hapless experiments, and no vessel to hold the experimenter in, The traditions recognize the power of it, and they create a ceremonial vessel of a few people who really hold the person who's experimenting, or a context where all the rules are known, and the rules are there to hold the very dangerous activity of becoming incredibly open to a whole new realm of spiritual possibility or of energetic possibility. And so I've come over the years, since the 60s and my, beloved but wild acid and Grateful Dead days and all of those things, good teachers. Those were good teachers, but I've come to appreciate ceremony much more, and the traditions of ceremony, and that structure rather than chaos. Structure, because within the structure that holds the ingesting of the substance, you find the safety to be able to do the vertical travel. And I think that part of it is that we have to be open. We have to really let ourselves be vulnerable to understand what we need to know. And so we need physically and socially around us some way that we're not having to watch our back all the time while we're doing this voyage.